Hello, Matthews, Gatos here. In this video, we're going to look at how do you place a fraction between two decimals. So I have two options for you. Option number one, you're just going to find a decimal that goes between those two decimals and then write it as a fraction. Option number two, you're going to change the two decimals that I give you to a fraction and then place a fraction in between those fractions. So both options are good options. I'll show you each one and then you decide which one you like better. So let's get started with this example. I want to identify a fraction between negative 0.6 and negative 0.7. So let's try the first option. And the first option was to find a decimal in between there first. So negative 0.6 and negative 0.7. So I know that my answer is going to be negative 0 point something. Now, if you look between 6 and 7, it doesn't look like there's really a number between 6 and 7. But here's a little trick. You can add 0 to the end of any decimal at all without changing its value. Now, that's a lot easier for me to see. What's a number between 60 and 70? Well, there's lots of numbers between 60 and 70. So you can just pick any number at all. There's no wrong answers. So let's try 61. That's in between there. So now I know a decimal in between those two numbers. I just now have to write it as a fraction. So I'm going to use place value to help me. So negative, now I'm going to use the 61 in the numerator, and in the denominator goes the place value. So let's talk about place value after a decimal. The first number after a decimal is the tenths. Second number after the decimal is hundredths. So this is said as negative 61. What's the biggest one? Hundredths. So that would be the fraction that's in between there. Now we would just look to see, can I reduce that fraction? Is there a number that goes into 61 and 100? In this case, there isn't. So that would be my final answer. So that's one way of doing it. The second way of doing it is to use fractions from the start, okay? So this is option number one. Let's look at option number two. So I have negative 0.6 and negative 0.7. So I'm going to change each of these to fractions. So 0.6 is said as 6 tenths because it's to the 10th position, and that's negative. This is negative 7 tenths. So one digit after the decimal place is tenths. Now, hard to see a number between negative 6 and 7. So just like I did for decimals, I can add on a place value. So it's like I'm multiplying this by 10 by adding a 0. But remember, I have to be fair and multiply that one by 10 as well. Over here, I'm going to change it from 10 to 100 by multiplying it by 10. So I'm also going to multiply this one by 10. And now I can just choose, I know my number in between is going to be out of 100, choose any number again from negative 60 to negative 70. So I could choose negative 61 again, and that would be my answer. So option one, option two, both are good options. You just have to remember to reduce your final fraction. Okay, so in this one here, I want you to find a fraction between negative 2.4 and negative 2.5. So pause the video, try it out using option one or two, then come back and see if you did it correctly. Okay, let's look at this. And I'm going to show you both options because I don't know which one you chose. So negative 2.4 and negative 2.5. Option number one is to find a decimal. So I know that my decimal is going to be negative 2 point. And then if you look at 4 and 5, there's not a whole number between 4 and 5. So I'm going to increase my place value. So I'm going to multiply this by 10, add in a 0, and multiply this one here as well. So now I can see any number between 40 and 50. You can choose any number at all. There's no wrong answers. So I might choose a different one than you. You could choose 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, or 49. All good choices. I'm just going to go with 41. Now, if I want to do a fraction, here's what I need to do. So I have negative 2. That's my big number. So I have negative 2. The decimal means and. What do I have? I have 41 tenths hundredths. So there would be my fraction. Negative 2 and 41 out of 100. Okay, let's look at option number 2 in case you chose that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my original and I'm going to change these two fractions. So this is -2. Remember the decimal means and. What do you have? You have 4/10. This is -2. The decimal means and 5/10. So I want to pick a number in between. So I know it's going to be -2. Now let's look at our fraction part. 4 and 5, they're both out of 10. So if I look at, there's no whole number between 4 and 5. So I'm going to use that trick again. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 10. Top and bottom by 10. So I know my answer is going to be out of 100, and you choose any number between 40 and 50. Any number at all. I'm going to go with 41 again. And if possible, you want to reduce your fraction. So I was a little sneaky. I chose 41 because I know 41 and 100 don't have anything in common because one's odd, one's even. And I also know 41 has no other factors. So either method that you choose, again, you don't have to have the same answer as me. Anything between 40 and 50 would work. So I hope this video helped, and I look forward to seeing you for the next one. That's okay.